Today's video is about source control. In particular, it's about the way that I do source control. Now, you may be shocked to discover that I use a little piece of software called Git to do source control. However, I don't just use Git. I use Git-branchless, which is a set of CLI commands that works on top of Git. We'll talk a lot more about that. I also do everything within VS Code and use some built-in VS Code commands, and I've also developed an extension for VS Code which integrates Git-branchless as well as some common Git commands with Talon so that I can control the whole setup by voice. Now, you don't need to use Talon or voice to do a lot of the things that I'll show you today, but the voice side of things gives you a nice slick spoken grammar for manipulating your Git graph. So let's start off by having a look. So you can see here the smart log, which is part of Git-branchless. And so I think it's worth spending a couple of minutes talking about this because it really highlights some of the amazing aspects that Git-branchless has to offer. So first off, you can see why it's called branchless. So notice that we have commits here with no branch on them. Now, normally Git would garbage collect those eventually. So you're kind of playing with fire if you work in a detached head state. But Git-branchless, in Git-branchless, having a detached head is totally fine. In fact, it's kind of the norm. And it flips things up so that a branch is really just a bookmark, something that points to a particular commit for convenience or for making a PR or whatever. So Git-branchless does this by keeping these like extra logs around. I don't know. It has some magic to make sure that Git doesn't garbage collect. So you're safe to do it. But I think one of the cool things about branchless is like Cursorless, where yes, it's called Cursorless, but you can still use a cursor. And in fact, you do often. But you're not constrained by the cursor, right? You can do things without using a cursor when it's better to do so, and the cursor isn't the only workflow. Similarly, in branchless, first class support for branches, but you don't need to use branches in order to survive. So you can do much lighter weight things. So for example, things like a stash can be replaced just by having a commit with no branch pointed to it, and lots of other really cool workflows. So the next thing you'll see is that when so if you can see the commit that we're on is highlighted. And there's this little play there, which basically means that we are on this branch, right? So if I make a commit, this branch will follow me forward. However, I can do git detach, browse, and notice that that play disappeared. So now we're still in the same commit, but if I make a change, then that will go ahead and not increment the branch pointer. So the way I want to do things in this video is basically just go through a couple common day-to-day workflows, and via that we'll show you some of the different tools and abstractions that Git-branchless, as well as my VS Code extension and VS Code, as well as Git-lens, I didn't mention, is another piece of my workflow. We can see how they work together rather than just giving a laundry list of the different features which my setup supports. So let's start off by doing a super simple commit, just to show what it looks like to do, or at least the way I do commits in Git-branchless. So we're going to be tackling a really simple issue, portal. Drowse. So we are super simple commit. I just need to do like a one-line change somewhere. Coder. Zen mode. Copy pink cap, post file. Clear green urge, word settings, post ears leper, quad, word user point. Paste that. Quick fix ears spun. Prefile. Pour entry bolt find, word settings. Disk. Post file. Prefile. Chuck name brow made. Disk. Drowse. Okay, we made our change. So now let's commit it. Git commit, stop using deprecated Talon setting. Void word support. Disclose. Drowse. Okay, I just made a commit. So git log, so that smart log, I have that mapped to git log. And by the way, so if you want to learn how to, if you want to set all these things up, all of these commands I put in a separate spoken form directory, and you can install the extension. Super easy to set up, unlike a lot of my custom stuff. So there's some links in the description below. Let's look at what we did. Git log. Drowse. Okay, so what changed, right? Before we had main, and then there was, so this is the main branch, and then there was this commit hanging off of it, and now there's another commit hanging off of it, right? Everything is just a tree. And so we have this commit now. Now, one of the things in my setup that I like is you have this kind of duplicated thing where you make a commit and then you make a branch. And like, what do you name the branch? Like, why do you need both? So I have a thing where I can just say auto branch. Git auto branch head. Drowse. And you can see it just automatically created a branch based on the commit name. It just used Slugify and prepends this, right? So so that automatically created a branch. And so now I can push it. Git push. Clap. Drowse. And then I can either click this or I can just say rec make. Rec make. Drowse. Okay. And then we can say dash void proud fixes void portal. Coder. Paste that. Drowse. Let's leave it as a draft for now because I want to review it, but that's not the point of this video. Okay, we created a PR. Cool. So notice what I did there, right? So I was on the main branch, git log, term zoom, side dog, drowse, but in a detached head state, right? And that's like, I live in a detached head state, right? So that warning that you get from Git, I never see that. If you're in a detached head state. So with branchless, it's just kind of the normal thing to do. So it's like, so I was just on this commit, I made a commit, it was an anonymous commit, I didn't need a branch, and then it was like, okay, now I'm ready to make a PR, I'm gonna go ahead and make a branch for this thing. Okay, one workflow. So another workflow is, so I had, if you watched my keyboard video, you saw I made a bunch of these commits here, right? And then I made a branch for it. And so notice here how I have like this little branch off the side of it that's like some tweak. And so, okay, one thing I can do is I hold command and then click, then git lens pops up with the actual details of that commit, which is super useful for like just inspecting things from this graph. So you can see this is like some way I had of doing things with a keyboard mark. I didn't like it, but I have it around for right now because the PR hasn't been reviewed. Maybe I switch back to this, right? So it's really good for speculative commits and like with the like a sort of better, more fully integrated version of stashing. Side dog, term zoom, drowse. Okay, so now let's do some manipulations on the graph, right? We haven't done anything particularly interesting from like a Git graph perspective. We've sort of shown you how to see the graph, and we've made a commit starting out headless and adding a branch. But now let's say I want to do some manipulation. Okay, so I had this branch here, which had these various changes on it. While I was gone over the holiday break, Josh went ahead and made some tweaks to this, and I had kind of separated. If you watched the video, you saw I like kind of separated atomic commits. We try to do atomic PRs in Cursorless. So basically, we try to make a pull request as small as possible, but no smaller, which makes things much easier to review. I found that my PRs get reviewed much more quickly, and also when you're reviewing a PR, you don't have to context switch, right? So it's really nice if you have PRs to have them so that each commit is a specific, meaningful. So people refer to this as like a patch set, I believe. And so I like to do this, but I don't always code this way, right? So, so Josh basically tried to preserve these patches that I had. We had a discussion and decided, well, we want to squash a lot of these because really there's like a few core things going on here. Okay, so what we're going to do, there's a couple things we're going to do. So the first thing we want to do is actually we want to split one of these commits. Because if you look at this, if you remember from that session, I decided to make some change to this code, perform simple action on target, so that here I could go ahead and use it. Okay, so I want to split that out because that has nothing to do with this particular commit, right? This is important to the commit. I say perform action on target, but this where I introduce like this new version of perform action on target, that's more abstract. I want to split that out. Okay, so one thing that we can do with this setup is split commits. Side dog, term zoom, drowse. Okay, so this is the commit that we want to split. And the way that I do that is I have a command which I call draft. And this is actually not a branchless command. This is just a spoken alias for a mixed reset. If you don't know what that means, that's totally fine. But I figured I'd say it in case you do. So you know I'm not doing anything magic here. This is just a mixed reset. But basically what it does is, so this is where we start to get into the interesting spoken grammar that I have. So you can have, just like with Cursorless, you can have targets, right? But unlike Cursorless, a target in this spoken grammar refers to a set of commits, one or more commits. Whereas in Cursorless, a target refers to effectively one or more ranges in a document. Okay, so so what I can do is I can say, all right, I want to draft this commit onto that commit, and what that does is it takes the source commit. It basically just marries the files, the snapshot of your directory from one commit with the history of another commit, right? So it basically just says, hey, I want you to check out this commit and make the directory look like this commit. Okay, so that's a bit abstract. So basically, what does that mean here? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, right? This is the one I wanted to split up, and I'm basically going to draft it onto its parent. Git draft this back one. Drowse. Okay, so notice, right? We are now at the commit that is a parent of this commit, okay? First of all, so that's where we are in Git. There's sort of these two kind of semi-orthogonal worlds here, right? There's like, what does the working directory look like? And there is, where am I in the Git tree of commits, right? Okay, so I've shown you where I'm in the tree of the commits. I'm in the parent of the commit I'm trying to split. Git status, drowse. But then you can see that in terms of changes, I have whatever was in this commit, that working tree, is now applied here. So basically, so you know, we could just do like git diff this. How do you do a git diff with a working copy? Not sure. But the point is, we have the source tree here. And from Git's perspective, from VS Code's perspective, we just made these are our changes we've made. And the cool thing is, like, I know that these came from here, so I can just be like reckless. I don't care if I like screw something up. I can just revert everything because I know I'm just working on code that I already have checked in, right? Which is really nice. And so basically all I wanted to do was just grab the things from this file. Okay, so let's just go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to stage this, and then I'm just going to discard everything else. Yeah, I don't care, whatever, get rid of it. I'm invincible, right? I have the actual code is on the graph elsewhere. Okay, and so this basically is let's see if we can get an automatic commit message for this. a bit generic. Um, a bit generic. Yeah. Copy green gust. Many scratch. Sense create more generic void. Paste that. Drowse. Okay, so yeah, don't worry about that. Okay, fine. So once again, we always come running back to the smart log. Git log. Term zoom. Drowse. So what did we do? Right? We now have from the parent of this commit. So this is the one we were trying to split, right? So from the parent, we now have this, and we have this, right? So this is now just that little piece of the commit, right? And now this contains the rest of it, okay? And so when I'm doing a split here, right, what I can do is I can just, so now we're going to use another command here. I'm going to just move this to this. Git move this to head. Drowse. Okay, what happened, right? You can see now that there is this commit in between, right? So basically this original commit, if we look at it, no longer has that targeted thing in it. That has gone here. So or that has gone, yeah, here, right? So, okay, yeah. So a lot of things happened there. Let's break it down. So first of all, just the spoken grammar, right? So I said git move this to head, okay? And this is where we start to dig into the actual spoken grammar that that I created for manipulating these trees. So I mean, you know, call me a hedgehog, but I like to view everything from a small number of lenses, right? And so the cursorless grammar works well, and so we use a similar grammar here. So just like in cursorless, we have marks, modifiers, and actions. Okay, so here though, the marks are a bit different from the marks in cursorless because again, everything is commits on your commit graph, not targets. Okay, what marks do we support? Well, there's this. The this mark, uncoincidentally, is very similar to the cursorless this mark, right? And so basically what I do is I select something. Now, I double click on something to select it, right? And that's going to be this. Okay, that's one mark. Another mark is head. Now, this is something for which cursorless has no real analog. Head is the whatever commit you have checked out, right? So if I say head, then that refers to the checked out commit. So to go back to that grammar again, what I said was I had double clicked on this and I said git move this to head. And so that took the commit and it moved it to head. And so that's the spoken grammar. Cool. But like the real hard work here is being done by Git-branchless. And so Git-branchless does some pretty awesome stuff here. So Git-branchless, it has this move command. And so you know, we can go up and see what the actual, what the spoken form translated to, right? It was Git-branchless move -- source. And the source was what I had double clicked, right? It was this, which obviously has a new SHA now because it's been moved, but the original SHA was this. And destination was head, which is dot, right? And so this is a Git-branchless command, right? So all my spoken form did was just spit out the CLI, right? So like Git-branchless is the real hero here. So basically I just, what it does with the move command is it takes a commit as well as all the commits which are below it, right? So like, you know, if I moved this, then for example, all of this and this would come along for the ride, right? So it's like all descendant commits in the tree follow it along. There's a version just like in Cursorless where I can say git move just this. And what that's going to do is it's going to splice that commit out and drop its parents onto the parent of the thing I spliced out. That's less commonly used, but I do still use it. And again, the real magic comes from Git-branchless. Move just blah just uses a dash dash exact. Okay, so basically what happened was I used move, right? And then moreover, notice that because, so when I did that move, it tried to do a merge, right? Because basically it was somewhere else, and this had some of the changes from this, but because it was just strictly contained only changes from this, it cleanly was able to identify, actually that change, which wasn't originally in here, is now in a parent, so I don't need to include that in the commit. Whether that's Git-branchless doing that intelligent thing or Git, I couldn't tell you. Drop something in the comments if you know more about Git than me and have an answer there. But the point is, I split a commit and it was super easy. Okay, cool. So now I have split out this this commit, and I want to do some rearranging here. Okay, so first of all, I do want to preserve some of these, right? So notice how Josh has slightly different versions of my commits. So here's where we start to view branches as just a pointer. It's just a bookmark, right? So basically what I want is I want it so that this branch is pointing here. Well, easy enough. So I basically just say, copy that. Git point this to clip. Drowse. Okay, what happened? So I've introduced another mark, right? So we already had this, which is your selection. We had head, which is the currently checked out commit. And a new one I introduced is called clip. And that's whatever's on your clipboard, right? So what I did, and this is a way to because we don't have a way of referring to, this is the way we can refer to multiple targets in this grammar, is using the clipboard and this, or using head or whatever, right? And so in this case, I copied the one thing and then I selected the other, right? So I copied this, and then I just selected this and I said, git move this, git point this to clip, right? So point is this the action, git point, right? So what it does is it basically takes the branch and points it to something, right? So let's do that again. Copy that. Git point clip to this. Drowse. Okay, so we moved some branch pointers. And again, it's like the graph, it just feels more robust to me working in this world than in the traditional Git world where I'm always terrified of losing a branch and messing something up. I just have these commits in this graph and they're just robust, which in Git's guts, it's how they are. Everything's extremely robust and everything is identified by SHAs, but I don't know, somehow you end up being terrified. Whereas this feels like it's really just bringing Git's robustness to the surface. And I just have this graph, I point things around on it, and that's it. Okay, cool. So we pointed these two branches here. So this is starting to look good. And then I wanted to, I mentioned that a lot of these different, a lot of these different features here, they are they're not, they're not interesting enough to be their own PRs, I think. It's it's a trade-off between atomic PRs. You want them to be as small as possible, but no smaller. But sometimes it's too small. So I was just going to merge these features together. Okay, so there's a couple different ways I can do this, right? So one way that I can do this is, first of all, I want to move this back up this way, right? Because this one is required for this, but it's kind of semi-independent of all these things. So I'm going to move this way back up here. Okay. But I only want to move this specific commit. I want to keep these here. Right. Sorry. One more thing. Yeah, right. I forgot to bring this. So you can see here, this had tweaks, right? And this had tweaks. So, but I had this on my other branch. So basically, I want to take this and move it to the end of here, right? So let's copy that. Git move this to clip. Drowse. Okay, cool. So that moved. Notice it took the branch pointer along for the ride. I'm not sure I want that. Copy that. Git point clip to this. Drowse. And one more thing to notice is that as I'm doing all these things, I'm moving branch pointers around, I'm literally moving commits around in the graph. I never checked, nothing happened in my working tree. This is another thing that makes Git terrifying, right? Is that like you always have to like go into your working tree and mess around your working tree. Whereas with Git-branchless, it does speculative rebases in memory, and only if it cleanly applies does it do anything. It'll just bail if there would need to be a merge conflict, and then you need to go and use your working tree, which is awesome because like the need to go and do everything in your working tree I find really annoying. It's like, why is my working tree so fundamentally coupled to just this graph sitting around? I should be able to manipulate the graph. So as you can see here, I basically moved that commit to the end here. Let's point this here. Git point this forward one. Drowse. So I think another interesting thing there, right, is this grammar is somewhat productive, right? We have back one, we have forward one. I sort of skipped over it when we did it on the first time when I said git draft this back one. I don't know if you remember I said that. So we have in this world, we have sources, we have targets, and we have destinations, a lot like with Cursorless, right? And so back one or forward one is actually a destination which modifies the source, right? So when I said git draft this back one, that drafts from here onto here, right? And then I had this branch here and I said git point this forward one, and that moves it forward. So these are, so this grammar is fairly productive, right? You can use these back one, forward one on all these different actions. And again, you get this combinatorial explosion of these different modifiers, etc. So, okay. Let's look at, so what we want to do is basically, I wanted to take this okay, I want to merge this commit with this commit. So now I can do all this graph stuff in this fancy newfangled way, but sometimes there's not really a good replacement for just a plain old interactive rebase. So let's go ahead and do that. Git pop to this. Drowse. There's another command, by the way, is git pop. And basically, and that expects a destination, right? So I say git pop to something, right? Just like with Cursorless, the destination needs to or before or after. So I say git pop to whatever, right? So I can copy something and say git pop to clip, or I can say git pop back one to move to the previous commit, right? And so here I select something, you said git pop to this. Notice that I selected the branch so that I'm on the branch. If I had done this and said git pop to this, I wouldn't be on the branch. I think that's kind of a nice dichotomy. So now I just do a classic rebase, right? So I have some shortcuts. So if I say grim, that's git rebase -I main. So let's do that. Showing off another cool tool here, and this is Git lens, right? So as you can see, it keeps coming back to Git lens and Git-branchless, and then the VS Code thing that I've built on top of Git-branchless. Those are kind of the things that just again and again I'm using when I'm doing my Git interactions. Okay, and so this, I kind of like this GUI. That being said, it does break down a bit when you want to do some things that are more fancy because you can't use Cursorless on it, right? So let's go ahead and you can switch back to the dumb view. So let's go ahead and do that. But before we do that, I think let's do some manipulations here in the GUI view. Okay, so I mentioned that I had this one, and I wanted this to be yeah, so I wanted this one to be coupled with this one, right? So I basically would just say fix up, great, and then I want both of these actually to come down here, and I want this one to fix up this one. Yep. Okay, and then this tweaks. What is this? Okay, let's, yeah, okay, got it. Pop last. Drowse. Okay, I think this can come along for the ride here. Okay, and then all of these, yeah, so now these are all just different individual keyboard features. We want to just squash these, okay? So let's go ahead and switch to text mode. Okay, cool, it preserved those. Because let's use Cursorless, right? So basically we have, these are the first 2, 3, okay, right, and this fix up this, and now I basically want all of these to fix up this, right? Bring Plex to blue ink, slice its end of block. Disk. Drowse. Okay, so that's good. We want to reword this one because this is just the keyboard features. Bring red whale to blue pit. Disk. Drowse. Okay, we're feeling pretty good. This looks like the rebase I'm after. So let's see what happens. Disclose. Drowse. Okay, we got a merge conflict. These things happen. Let's see what it looks like. Git status. Drowse. Okay. Right. So. Oh, right. I should have moved these things to main first, or merged them with main first, because I rebased it onto main rather than rebasing it onto. What I was trying to do was rebase it onto its parent. So we are rebasing against main, which is fine. It's just we're sort of doing two things at once, which is what it is. So. Let's see. So what did I do? I deleted these, or sorry, they deleted those. I added this. Okay, so let's just keep that, I guess. Yeah. Chuck 2 lines kick. Except blue harp. Disk. Except blue harp. Disk. Git stage all merged. Git commit. Git log. Term zoom. Drowse. So it looks like the rest of it went through cleanly. This, I don't know why I get this. This is one of the frustrations in my setup. So when I do a rebase, for whatever reason, Git-branchless has this bug where it sometimes holds on to these. I made a way to clean these things up. I wonder if I saved it. Well, I can show you. So if you want to hide something, get rid of something from this graph, I have a command called abandon. It's called hide in branchless, but I call it abandon because I want it to be long because it's kind of like a destructive command. Git abandon this. Drowse. And so I'm just popping to repeat that in case that wasn't clear. Git abandon this. Drowse, yeah, and you get some of these like weird, like, so yeah, the interaction with rebase is a little bit less than ideal. You get some of these like these ghost commits, but I know to just get rid of them. Git abandon this. Drowse. Okay, and then you're supposed to do what's called a git restack, which will take these, which will basically, because these got rewritten, and so it's supposed to kind of figure things out. So there you go. It moved those branch pointers. Okay, and so you can see now we have these this cleaner stack here. The reword didn't go through, but that's fine. Branchless has a reword command, so I just do git reword dot. I don't have a voice command for this one, so I just do that. And we'll just call this clear line. Sense basic keyboard features. Disclose. Term zoom, git log. Drowse. Okay, so now this graph is looking a lot cleaner, right? So we have this highlight instance reference. That's going to be its own PR. This is going to be its own PR. This one I think will probably be its own PR as well. This will be, this will probably go into this one. But I'll have to have a look, right? So the point is, you've now seen how I can squash commits together, split commits. So notice I could also squash commits by just taking, if I wanted to squash all these, right? I could just draft this to main. I could say git draft. Okay, main is another, is the final mark that I didn't mention. So main is whatever your main branch is. So I could say git draft this to main, and that I could easily create a squash commit. We're going to try that because we have nothing to lose. Everything's in the history. I'll show you what that looks like. Git draft head to main. Drowse. So notice we're on main, but not checked out. Okay, by default I don't check it out because I don't usually ever check it out. And notice this just contains everything from here. So if I wanted to, I could just commit it. Like, you know, let's call it git commit all the keyboard stuff. Disclose. Git log. Term zoom side dog. Drowse. And as a sanity check, right, let's do git diff head against this. It's the same stuff, right? So I squashed it. So I think like, so we don't need this. Git pop to main. Git abandon this. Drowse. So I think the nice thing about this setup is that it's just a couple fairly simple abstractions which can be combined in a lot of different interesting ways, right? Like, so there's nothing special to support splitting commits. It just sort of falls out of the different tools that are available in this setup. So I think that sums up most of it. I guess what I didn't mention is I mentioned there's marks and modifiers. I didn't mention any of the modifiers. To show off modifier, let's look at something like this. So for example, let's say, so this graph can get a bit messy sometimes. It's sorted by like how recent it is, so it doesn't really matter for the most part. Just kind of, you just don't notice the old stuff. You go and clean it up periodically and you pop. But so one thing I'll show you is that, so for example, this, right? If I wanted to get rid of these, now notice that if I just said git abandon this, well, that would just abandon this, right? And so this is where we have a modifier. So Branchless has a really nice abstraction called a stack. And what a stack is basically all the commits above main in a particular sequence, right? So this would be, these three would be a stack. But in addition, for example, okay, so these are also a stack, right? So this and this, they're not part of the same stack because they fork off of main, so they're different stacks. But this is a stack, even though it has a tree. Git log stack this. Drowse. So you can say log. So one way to understand the different things that you have, like the targets, like the marks, and the modifiers is you can just use the log action, right? So it's a nice way to sort of debug what these things are. And notice that like this stack was these commits, right? Git log, drowse. So if I wanted to get rid of, so like what usually I'm doing when I'm cleaning up my tree is I'll just say git abandon stack this. Drowse. So I basically just say that, and then I just keep popping and cleaning up. Those were things that I needed to clean up. I'm not just removing random commits from my graph. I left a couple on purpose. Yeah, the one more modifier is tail, right? So tail will basically just go from here and downwards, right? So it won't include the parents, whereas stack will include the parents, everything on that stack. So I think that's all I have to say for now. But I've been using this workflow for about a year or so now without too much modification. It's working quite well for me. I'm really happy with it. Like before I switched to Git branchless and this voice-driven setup, I used to find Git a bit painful. It would chafe a lot. And now I actually find Git fairly comfortable to use. I'm really comfortable moving commits around, drafting things, splitting things, and it just kind of works. I feel like my mental model and Git's model with branchless align now, and I have harmony. So I wish the same harmony for you in all your Git travails. Check out the description if you want to learn how to get a setup like this. Thank you so much for watching, and happy coding. Record stop.